The air inside the grand hall of Harvard Law was thick with the prestige that felt like a physical weight. To most, it was the scent of success and ancient leather-bound books. But to me, it smelled like a cold monument, beautiful, distant, and entirely unforgiving. I sat in the third row, my back as straight as the iron frames of the trucks I used to drive. Every footstep on that polished marble echoed like a judgment against my presence. I was wearing a perfectly tailored Chanel suit, a garment that cost more than most families earned in an entire year. I wore it like armor, hoping it would hide the calluses on my heart, if not the ones that used to be on my hands. In my purse, my fingers brushed against the cold, sleek key to a brand new Tesla Model S. It was meant to be my graduation gift for Amelia, a silent expression of every sacrifice, every lonely mile, and every ounce of pride I had for her. I had built my trucking empire from the mud and the grease. I remembered the sleepless nights behind the wheel, the roar of diesel engines that became my only lullaby, and the frozen highways where a single mistake meant death. I did it all so Amelia would never have to know the cold. I traded my presence in her life for her comfort. And yet, sitting in this hall of privilege, I knew that in her eyes, and the eyes of her cultured peers, I was still just a trucker. Amelia took the stage, looking radiant in her black robe. She looked like royalty, a finished product of the finest education money could buy. When her eyes swept the crowd and met mine, I forced a smile, desperately hoping she saw the mother who loved her, not just a source of embarrassment. Then she began to speak. She thanked her father first. Her voice was filled with admiration as she called him brilliant, inspirational, and cultured. The audience applauded gently, a warm sound that felt like a knife in my chest. I knew the truth. Her father hadn't paid for a single textbook. He hadn't spent a single night worrying about her future. He had only spent my money. Then the room went bone-chillingly silent. Amelia paused, her gaze locking onto mine with a coldness that made the air freeze in my lungs. "And to everyone who supported me, except my mother," she said. The words didn't just fall, they shattered. Whispers spread through the hall like wildfire. I felt the oxygen leave my lungs as my own daughter publicly humiliated me in front of hundreds. She didn't stop there. She continued, claiming my common background was a stain and an embarrassment to the family she wanted to build. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I simply stood up. With every eye in that hall burning into my back, I looked my daughter straight in the eyes and gave her a single, slow nod. Then I turned and walked out. Back in my hotel suite, the silence was louder than any engine. I opened my laptop and looked at the cold math of my devotion. $513,000 spent on her education and lifestyle in just 4 years. My finger hovered over the keyboard. With 3 clicks, I dismantled her world. I canceled the $1 million startup fund for her fiancé, David. I frozen her trust accounts and luxury credit cards. I called my lawyer and removed her from my $80 million will. When she called an hour later, asking about our celebratory dinner at a 5-star restaurant, I stayed silent. I didn't answer. I let the silence be the mirror of the void she had created. The fallout was swift. Within 48 hours, the scavengers in her life showed their true colors. David, her visionary fiancé, vanished the moment he realized the $1 million check was never coming. He didn't even leave a note. He just stopped answering her calls. Her father called me. his voice trembling with a fury that only a man who has lost his meal ticket can feel. He called me a monster. I told him, "I'm giving her what she wanted, a life without a common trucker. Let's see how your culture pays the rent." Amelia was evicted from her Beacon Hill apartment. She moved into a small, damp walk-up that smelled of stale grease and old radiator steam. She had to trade her designer heels for sensible flats. She took a job as a paralegal, earning $55,000 a year, a fraction of what I used to give her for a monthly allowance. The most poetic justice was her daily life. For the first time, she had to ride the subway. She stood shoulder to shoulder with the very people she had called common. In her new job, she was assigned to the logistics and trucking division. Every day, she had to read through the logs of drivers, people like me. She saw the sweat, the hours, and the grit behind every dollar. Slowly, the arrogance began to melt away. On Thanksgiving morning, a 10-page letter arrived at my door. It wasn't a request for money. It was a confession. She wrote about how her father had poisoned her mind and how she had been a fool to listen. She told me she had started a Patricia repayment fund, depositing $200 every month from her small paycheck. We finally met at a small, humble diner. No valet, no white tablecloths. She looked tired, her hands were a bit rougher, and her eyes were wider. She pushed a $200 deposit slip across the table. "I don't expect forgiveness," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I just want my mother back." I didn't take the money. I reached across the table and took her hand. "I've always been here," I told her. A year later, Amelia passed the bar exam on her own merit. She didn't use my name or my money. She stayed at her small firm, fighting for the rights of the drivers and laborers she once looked down upon. That Christmas, she came home. There were no luxury gifts under the tree, just the smell of home cooking and the sound of real laughter. We realized that by taking everything away, I had given her the only thing worth having, her own strength. Our relationship was no longer built on a bank account. It was finally built on respect.